Hey, it's Michael J. And now that it's October, I start pulling out the Universal horror movies. I like watching those during Halloween season. And in several of those, there is an actor called David Manners. And I realize every October how much I really like him in the movies. Now, he made a lot of other movies besides horror movies, but he's best known for appearing as Jonathan Harker in Dracula. He's also in The Mummy and The Black Cat. And he always played romantic heroes, what they used to call the juvenile. And he's a mild-mannered, square-jawed, good-looking actor, the boyfriend to everybody, the good guy, you know. But he has a really interesting story. So I thought today we'd talk about David Manners.
David Manners lived through most of the 20th century. He was born in 1900 in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and died in 1998 in California. He remembers his childhood as unhappy thanks to his father's coldness towards him and a spare the rod, spoil the child philosophy. When he was 7 years old, the family moved to New York City, where his father worked in publishing, and David attended Trinity High School. He and his big sister, Cecily, often made up plays to present to family members and visiting guests, so he had an interest in the theater from an early age. David's father didn't approve of his desire to study theater in college, so he studied forestry at the University of Toronto due to his interest in nature. But he started participating in theater productions there as well. In 1920, David's father found out his son was appearing in plays at the university's Hart House Theater and stopped supporting his son's education. Forced to drop out of college, David returned to New York where he could fully pursue his interest in acting. He found work with Basil Sidney's touring company, appearing in several plays, and in 1924 landing a role on Broadway in Dancing Mothers with Helen Hayes, under the name Michael Dawn. He also joined the Civic Repertory Theater under the direction of Eva Le Galline. All through his 20s, David struggled with accepting the fact that he was gay. In his journals, he sometimes writes that he did not care who knew, but then expressed great worry about keeping his feelings a secret. A bout with pneumonia in 1928 sent David to Arizona to recuperate. While there, he worked on a dude ranch and met Suzanne Bushnell, and in 1929 the two were married. A stopover in Los Angeles on the way to Hawaii turned into a permanent residency. At this point in his life, David was seriously considering taking his life. He was miserable, and we can assume the marriage wasn't the cure he thought it would be. Sitting alone in a room with a gun in his hand, contemplating suicide, the phone rang, and a friend said he had submitted David's name to Fox Studios for James Whale's film adaptation of the play Journey's End. They needed actors who could play British. David leapt at the chance and won the role. Journey's End began the David Manners Hollywood career. Between 1930 and 1936, he made 39 movies. Meanwhile, his wife filed to annul the marriage in 1930. By 1931, she was remarried and living in New Jersey. David remained single and was talked about in the movie fan magazines as a playboy and a most eligible bachelor. Studio-arranged dates kept his manufactured image alive in the press, while he moved from picture to picture. Although he made movies in many genres, today he is best known for his work in three Universal horror classics: Dracula,
Count Dracula.
Miss Mina, may I call later and inquire how you are feeling?
Why, yes. Thank you.
The Mummy,
Helen, come back. It's Frank. Come back.
and The Black Cat.
Sorry I frightened you, darling.
It is, after all, better to be frightened than to be crushed.
David specialized in playing juvenile roles a decade younger than his age, and this became tiresome for him. By 1936, he was ready to get out of Hollywood and live a more authentic life.
He'll never come back now.
Some of his most successful films were Journey's End, The Millionaire, The Miracle Woman, The Last Flight, A Bill of Divorcement, and Roman Scandals. I also love a particular pre-code melodrama called Man Wanted with Kay Francis.
I hope you'll stay down here till you're rested up.
So I'm not needed at the office anymore.
Not just at present, but you're terribly missed. Well, I must be going.
Stay and have a swim.
Couldn't be tempted.
Meet the crowd you never have.
I belong to the office.
Well, perhaps you're right. You know, Tommy, I'm glad you don't know a bunch like that.
I did know them, plenty of them. But that was before I knew the office.
I'll send you back in my car.
Thanks, I have one.
Think I'll be in tomorrow. This isn't really a rest.
I see. So long.
So long, Tommy.
Early on, David broke from his contract with First National Pictures to freelance, taking greater control of his career. He was a founding member of the Screen Actors Guild, and with the flexibility of his independence, started a home near Victorville, California, at Rancho Yucca Loma, where many Hollywood stars retreated to get away from the spotlight of the press. In 1936, he had a horrible experience at the start of a Joan Crawford film. She was completely nasty to him and he walked off the picture, never to return to a Hollywood soundstage again. Instead, he focused on a part ownership of Rancho Yucca Loma and writing novels. In later years, he would relate his appreciation for how success in films had come so easily and quickly to him, and understood why some would balk at his leaving films at the height of his success. But the Hollywood game was disturbing to his sense of peace with himself. Becoming a more private person was the answer to his mental health. He published 2 novels, Convenient Season and Underrunning Laughter, while volunteering for the USO during World War II. His ulcers and flat feet kept him out of the service, but he did what he could for the war effort. On a visit to the family in New York, David was coaxed back to Broadway to be featured in Truckline Cafe by Maxwell Anderson in 1946. The production also starred Marlon Brando and Carl Malden. After a failed Broadway production of Agatha Christie's Hidden Horizon, David took on a role in a very successful revival of Oscar Wilde's Lady Windermere's Fan, and also toured the country with it. This 2-year stint in the theater fed David's acting bug, but he missed life on the ranch and returned home in 1948. Also in 1948, David met Bill Mercer, a playwright and screenwriter. They hit it off and were together for 30 years. In 1957, David and Bill sold the ranch and moved to Pacific Palisades. Bill died of a heart attack in 1978. By 1987, David was living in a retirement home in Santa Barbara. He would sign old Hollywood photos from fans, but otherwise didn't want to live in the past. David was very spiritual, publishing a metaphysical newsletter for years. He did not trust organized religion, but was a student of all religions throughout his life. David Manners died in 1998, and his surviving family members scattered his ashes on the site of his beloved Yucca Loma Ranch. However, he lives on through his movies, that bright, handsome, eternally young man, always the hero.
Now, the only almost biography that exists about David Manners is this, and it is called The Wonder Within You from the Metaphysical Journals of David Manners, and it's edited by David Morgan Jones. The introduction to this book is rather lengthy, and it's all biography material and goes through his life. This is my chief source for guiding us through this video, but it's filled with journal entries by David Manners and his thoughts on all kinds of things, most Mostly it's about his spiritual life. And it's worth reading if you're interested in David Manners. It's really the best thing out there that you can read. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
I didn't eat a bite at luncheon.
Well, neither did I. Whoever eats anything at a wedding luncheon? They make the food out of papier-mâché. My salad has been used 4 or 5 times this week. Shall we dine in, Mrs. Allison?
You mean here in the compartment?
Yeah.
Elegant.